to Electrician Live with your host, Paul Abernathy and Jay Grunberg. Well, hey, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Electrician Live with your host, Paul Abernathy, and as always with me,
Jay Grunberg.
Jay Grunberg, a.k.a.
The Basement
King. There you go. Well, welcome to the show. Have you had a good week, Jay? Has it been a good week?
I have.
For Wired Up Electrical Designs, LLC?
Yeah, you know, it has. It's been a very great week. We've been busy, hard at it, and I even got guys that work this weekend. So,
wow,
we're busy.
Burning. Have those guys burning them out, just working them all the time? Okay. As long as that's what they want. As long as that's what they want.
Yeah, I actually went this morning to a call down south about 30 minutes from here, and this guy tells me, he says, hey, I'm in my basement. That's where my office is at. And I have this heater, and every time I play with my computer desk, it trips the circuit. So I said, okay, well, let me, and he says, this heater's really small. So anyways, I went down there, looked at it. That heater pulled 1,500 watts. So it's pulling 12 and a half amps on a little box heater, teeny little box heater. And I said, well, this is your problem. You have 12 and a half amps here. You're sharing your lighting load and your 6 receptacle loads. So in a nutshell, I had to charge him to go down there and take a look at it, but we're going to run 2 dedicated circuits for him next week.
There you go.
So
there you go.
I'm hard at it too.
There you go. Working, putting in the time. Okay.
Yeah. How was your week?
It's a good week. Good week. We had a lot of students signing up for the programs. Very good. People preparing for their licensing. Got quite a few are jumping into that residential program, so that's pretty good. I guess what else? We had another successful Zoom Wednesday night. We did Raceway Phil, so that was a pretty good show. But again, for those that are in the Fast Tracks program, I should mention this, Jay. For those that are in the Fast Tracks program, the video for the Raceway Phil calculation is in Chapter 5. Okay, it's in the videos. It's embedded in there for those that want to go back and watch it if you're in the Fast Tracks program. If you are part of our subscription program over on our YouTube channel, which is at the $9.99 and or higher, the Electrician Exam Prep Live or higher plan, then you can also watch it. It's shared there as well, exclusive for you. All you got to do is go to the community tab and you can find it there as well. And a reminder out there again to people, $4.99 2020 NEC series does not give you access to the Wednesday night live streams, does not give you access to the exclusive content. That is only for the 2020 NEC series. And again, that is an ongoing series. It's not every week. It's every time we add something. And there's quite a few of them in there to listen to or to watch. But that is different than the exclusive content that we will share up on the Electrical Exam Prep Live and higher platform. Okay, so again, if you're wondering if you don't get access to those, why? Well, that would be why.
Right.
So, hello everybody, starting to come in.
Hey,
everybody.
So
joining us.
let me ask you something about last Wednesday night exam prep, because I was there and it was very successful. I think we had at one point like 18 to 20 students, including some that probably attend tonight. Nick, Joe, AC, a couple guys. It was just good to really sit there and be in kind of a bubble, if you want to say that, and to be able to interact at will and kind of how it went down. And it was really nice. So as you, I got a question for you though, as you transition from doing your exam prep on YouTube to now doing it through the Zoom meeting platform, what have you noticed in the last 2 episodes that confirms that this change is going to be successful for these guys and for us? What have you noticed? Well,
I think that when you have a platform that is open to the public and they don't have the ability to interact with you,
yes,
then the only thing they can do is text. And that's all they can do. So they don't have that interactive thing. And so with this, it allows for us to have an interaction so that I can explain something. If somebody has a question, they can ask it. And I think that's what's unique about it. And again, it's not unique in the platform of the Zooms or the other teams they have for Microsoft, or I guess there's a Skype as we use on this show.
Right.
There's other different ways to do it, but I think that the ability to have that one-on-one is what's going to make it successful. Again, obviously, we could have done it the public one, and of course, then that would have been something that's out there always on the internet, generating some type of extra income for people watching. Obviously, this move wasn't about that, right? This move was about being able to have a platform that people can come to that are studying for the exam or just want to get more knowledge on the NEC, or part of our subscriber, a benefit to the subscribers over on our YouTube channel. Allows them to be able to interact with me and ask questions and get feedback. And then I break it into different episodes, like we did Raceway Fill. Prior to that, we did Box Fill. So this week's will be Adjustment and Corrections, which is talking about conductor ampacities, adjustment corrections, all the things that you really need to know for an exam, but also in real life. So that's this. So once we run through this gamut, Jay, of the different things like ranges and everything, then there'll be recordings that are available. So then some of the transition might be to just doing Q&A or some, questions and helping people look up questions and different things. So there's many ways that we can turn this, but we are now recording all of them, and they are going to be available to those platforms, like I said, but they won't be available to the public, sadly.
Right.
But I think it's a better way. I mean, what's your thoughts? You're a student. You have somebody who's learning the code continuously, and you have had an ability to be able to interact. Now, of course, obviously we can talk on this type of platform, and then you're call me obviously anytime. But when it comes to student interaction, I think it's probably a lot better because it allows a student to interact directly with me.
Yeah, I really don't think. I really don't think that what you're providing now is any less than what you're giving it before. Other than, again, it's a smaller room. It's those who are invested into the program. It's those who are really trying to study for the exam. So really, it weeds out the other individuals who really aren't serious. Because again, if you're taking this exam and that you're on the Fast Tracks program, you got your exam and this Wednesday's coming up, you're going to make time for that space, that two and a half hour window. And what you're going to learn in that 2.5 window, every episode, even these last two, are going to not only help you pass your exam, but give you that much more confidence going into it.
Sure.
What Raceway Phil last week, so much I didn't know, and I won't get into too much of it, but there was so much good insight and info. And again, it was nice hearing other people speak up too and have their questions, and kind of interact with the fellas, right? It was a good vibe, but it was very professional and very on the Fast Tracks, because you use that content. The content is from your Fast Tracks program. So it's nice because we see that. Right. So
and that was the concept, and it really doesn't seem fair for me to share Fast Tracks content with people that aren't invested in the Fast Tracks program. Now, the reason we can do it for the $9.99 level of subscriber over on our YouTube channel is because they're able to come in and actually get some insight into it, and it's a better economic value for them. But, of course, they don't have access to the Fast Tracks and our grading and interaction and things like that, so they don't have that. They won't get that as part of it. So, all right, well, let's get into the program, to what we're talking about tonight, Jay. So tonight's episode, as you saw, obviously, if you went over and looked at electricianlive.com, which is where you should go for all of your to see what the upcoming shows. And again, we have to update that because again we're getting to the end of what's listed on that site, so we're going to have to update it. But tonight's episode was when you could use the white or gray conductor as an ungrounded hot conductor. Yeah. And those different. So we're kind of having a discussion on that. And I want to keep it less too deep. Obviously, we got to go into code. We're going to have to look at code. So, but we might have some discussions on when and where you might run into this and why you might run into this and things like that. And just different things for people to understand. That type of thing.
Are we doing call-ins tonight?
We can do call-ins tonight. I mean, I didn't set up for call-in.
If you don't want to, no big deal. I'm pretty sure no one. They might. You never know. But before we get into today's show, let's pay homage to our sponsor tonight, which is electricianpride.com. I got this, Paul. Today's show is sponsored by electricianspride.com. Your one-stop shop for electrician-specific T-shirts, hoodies, phone cases, mugs, die-cut stickers, leggings, and so much more. Featuring unique designs for electricians, journeymans, and master electricians, as well as electrical engineers and electrical inspectors. For more info on this product, they're available at www.electricianpride.com. So go check it out, fellas and gals. I think there's stuff for the women, too, as well, isn't there?
There is.
Yeah, so the leggings, I mean, you know, although I have been known to wear leggings on a cold day, to try to keep the heat in underneath, maybe, and...
Okay, I don't want that visual. I don't want to have that visual. So...
I have Tesla's face on my cheeks. No, I'm just joking. Just joking.
Tesla cheek. All right.
Tesla cheeks.
All right. So, So, Jay, where do we want to go first? So, where are we going to go in the code books? We're going to have this conversation, and I will follow. I guess we want to go into Article 200, correct?
Yeah, I think we're going to head to 200 and 200.6. Okay,
because the room doesn't seem very chatty tonight, other than the mythical Jay Grunberg poster. But other than that, doesn't seem to be a busy room tonight. So we'll go on and go to the code. All right. So where do we want to be, Jay? I think we want to be in 200.6, correct?
Yeah, we want to transition into 200.6, means of identifying grounded conductors.
Okay. All right, so 200.6 is broken into an A, a B, a C, and a D, and as an E, and that's it. And we're going to focus on, again, tonight's topic is, first of all, let's lay the foundation for everybody out there, what has to be when you're dealing with a grounded conductor, before we even talk about utilizing it as an ungrounded conductor and when you might run into that scenario. But what is a grounded conductor? So a grounded conductor is a conductor that somewhere back in the original source is intentionally connected to Earth, creating a grounded conductor. So grounded conductors are not always neutral conductors.
Right.
But a neutral is always a grounded conductor. Okay? Now, being neutral means that if I have a system, let's say, and I have a three-phase system, let's say it's a 120-208Y system, and I go from A to neutral point, B to neutral point, C to neutral point, all of them are going to be 120, 120, 120. Okay? That type of scenario. If I think of a delta high leg system, and that would be a delta, that would be a system where if I had a delta high leg, which could be a 12240 with a 12208, depending on configuration, if I go to any of the phases to the neutral, which is the mid-tap point of one of the phase windings, then it would be 120, 120. But if I were to go to the high leg, that would be 208. That would not be a neutral conductor. Okay? So it's kind of... Let's talk a little bit about, we've established what the grounded conductor is, and we'll go on and say for our purposes tonight, let's call it a neutral, okay, just for in honor
simplicity.
of the simplicity and the basement king doing a basement. Let's kind of keep it where we would work with it. So identification of these grounded conductors. For those that are looking, and thus in the code book here for me and Jay, but those that are looking on the screen, so when the conductors are 6 gauge or smaller, so 6 gauge, 10 gauge, 12 gauge,
8 gauge,
14 gauge, 8 gauge.
Yeah, it's kind of crazy how the gauges go that way, right? You would think that they would go the number size
down would be bigger,
would
right?
be bigger, but it's not. It's actually the smaller the number, the larger the conductor.
Yeah. Until you get to the 4/0, and then it starts going. So once you start getting to 1/0, 2/0, 3/0, 4/0, which aren't even really numbering systems, then you get to 250 kc mill. Then it gets bigger because that represents the actual circular mill. So 250, 300, 350, 400, 450, yada, yada, yada. It gets bigger.
And it's going up.
And it's going up. So the American wire gauge, which was the old Brown and Sharp method, of extrusion. Interesting, if you didn't know how they actually, I don't know if you ever, Jay, if I ever get you down here to Texas, I'll give you a private tour of our facility at Encore Wire. So you actually get to see the birth of wire. From the very beginning, the copper gets put into the smelter, the cathode, and everything gets extruded out, and then it moves across the facility. You can actually see the wire get born and produced to final goods all in one campus. And it's amazing because it's over 400 acres. It's over 2 million plus. Now, actually, we just built a new facility, so it's like 3 million plus square feet under roof. And it's just amazing. It's like Disneyland for electricians. You get to see every type of wiring method made. And I can take you in places where normal people can't go. So, but anyway, the interesting thing about the extrusion is it starts out as a rod. It comes out of our furnace. It goes through and gets extruded down or drawn down into rods, okay? 5/8 inch rods. Then it goes into the extrusion process, and it goes through a bunch of dies, and that stretches it and pulls it down to the right gauge, whether it's 14, 12, 10, 8, whatever it is. And if it's stranded, it pulls it into smaller gauges that get, twisted together to create your stranded conductors. Now, 6 AWG or smaller, that means, as you said, 8, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, those type of things. They're going to have their insulated grounded conductor is going to have to be identified by either white, and that is insulated conductors shall have a continuous white outer finish. Now, interesting with that, Jay, is you could actually have kind of an insulation that's kind of darker colored, but then you extrude over it, let's say a colorized material like a nylon, if it's THHN, THWN-2 or something, that would be the outer finish, okay? And when you're dealing with something like an XHHW, which is a cross-linked polyethylene, for those that are familiar with the different wire insulation types, that's just a continuous extrusion. And so the outer finish will also be probably the color of the insulation. But sometimes manufacturers who make thermoplastic products won't put all the required pigments inside of the insulation for it because they know they're going to put a covering on top of that or an outer finish on top of that.
Right.
But I guess, the worry of that is if the nylon pops off or that comes off, then you won't see the true color, and that could be a problem with inspections. So most of us of the higher level wire producers will go on and pigmentize. Is that a word? Pigmentize. We will go and put pigments in our insulation extrusion. And so the insulation will actually be white, or in this case, the insulated conductor would be continuous gray outer finish. So white or gray. So that's our grounded conductor chief identifier, right?
That's yep. That is it.
So that's 1 and 2. So number 3 says, well, guess what? I'll let you use a conductor with any color insulation as long as it's not green. Okay, as long as it doesn't have green insulation or green covering on it, then I will let you use whatever you want, but you're going to have 3 continuous white or gray stripes along the conductor's entire length. Okay, along the entire length. Now, this kind of comes back to an episode we had a couple weeks ago where somebody went totally crazy because of a striping system that we use called the ringing stripe or smart stripe. And an inspector turned it down because he says it wasn't continuous white or gray. And it was continuous white or gray. The only thing that was different is the markings on it were of a unique style. That didn't change the fact that the insulated conductor was actually white its entire length. It just had some identifiers on it that told you which ungrounded conductor that it goes with. And that did not remove the fact that it is still continuous white outer finish. And so there was no issue, no harm, no foul there. But it was an issue that came up in a previous episode we had.
Yeah, I remember having that conversation with you, and you that took a good portion of your day to, I think, to explain to that person.
Yeah, it was a long
on the
day.
Other end.
Yeah, it was a long day
on?
explaining that this is okay and part of the code. So, so those are the main three.
And wouldn't you say that normally these wires that are 6 and smaller that come out THHN, that come in NMB, they're going to be white. I mean, more or less, they're going to be white or gray most likely. You can get the 3 stripes, and you might see it, or the striped white conductor, grounded conductor that you had or that you guys make, but for the most part, they're all going to be white. And I'm glad it says not green, because I've been in an instance where I was actually in a commercial building working on the second floor, and I was tying in EM lights. I was taking out some old EM fixtures and putting in new EM fixtures, and the EMs, the hot circuit, was used with a green conductor. Yeah, so, it was the green conductor. Yes. All the way through.
Yeah, so that's the problem also with a lot of imports that come in that they don't necessarily meet all of our NEC practices, but they're imported lights, and they might even get they might not even have a UL evaluation, right? They might not have a field evaluating body come out and do anything. They just use them. They just buy them, and that can be a problem. Absolutely, and you have to be careful.
I'm sorry. It wasn't the fixture. It wasn't the fixture itself. It was actual electricians that ran the green conductor in the conduit, in the tubing, the EMT. Yeah. No, it wasn't. I've dealt with that. The European system. It wasn't the luminaire. It was the actual, circuit coming from one box to the other. It was green. So they had 2 greens, and obviously you go up and you put your tester on it, and you just maybe brush by the green. It's like DDD, and I'm like, what? What is this? And I put my tester on it, and I'm like, goodness.
See, that's where somebody can get hurt, right? Somebody's going to get hurt. You can get shocked on that. I mean, I used to love it when people said, well, you can't get shocked from a neutral. BS.
Oh, yeah, right.
Neutrals, carrying a certain amount of current, trust me, whether it's the imbalanced load or it's carrying all the load, if it's a 14.2, 12.2, 10.2, what's going out is going to come back. So whatever the ungrounded's carrying, the grounded's going to carry. So the risk is always there. So those are the 3 main. And of course, you see here we have a 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, which are just other options for identification, which we're not going to spend a whole lot of time on those, because then they start to move out of the realm of what we're talking. Because the 4 is the closest, where that allows for a white or gray color, but have a colored tracing thread or braided identifier, things like that. Not really what we're going to run into in our normal thing. So with that said, the other thing that people run into is like, okay, well, what about I'm doing hot tubs, or I'm doing applications where I'm going to need to have 4 and larger? Well, the identification of a grounded conductor doesn't really change that much. Some of your options go away, but you get one real big option when it comes to 4 gauge and larger. And if you look at the screen, those that are looking at 200.6B, 1 and 2 is very similar, white or gray. Okay.
Right.
3, same concept. I can have any other conductor, fine, other than green insulation. 3 white or gray stripes, continuous, fine. Number 4, that ends up being the biggest one. That is, Jay, you go out to do a hot tub, and all you've got on your truck in 4 and larger is just black insulation. Because you buy it in bulk. You just buy it. It's easier. You know, you're going to either put it in liquid tight or you're going to do something, but you buy it bulk. And you're now going to have to do a grounded conductor, and you're thinking, well, crap. It's not white. It's not gray. Obviously, it's not blue with 3 white or gray stripes. It is black insulation. Well, good news is, at that time of installation, so you do all your installing, put it all in, go to make your terminations, that is the time of installation. That you can, by distinctive white or gray marking at the termination, not the whole conductor, Jay. I had people that wrap the whole conductor, just that termination.
Yeah, they use up like a quarter of the
whole roll of tape,
man.
Right?
They just, and then they go back up again.
Up again.
What are you doing, man?
Yeah, with keeping 3M in business. But at the end of the day, it says that it only has to be at the termination, and this marking shall encircle the conductor or insulation. So, encircle it. Go around it once. It's encircled. Do it at the termination. Now, there's people that argue that say, well, what about if it's cluttered? I can't see in there. Well, I would hope the installer will put it, obviously, where it's visible. You know, try to make an effort to make it visible. But at the end of the day, they're required they have an option at the time of the installation to do it at the installation. That's what they want to do. Perfectly okay for them to do it. Now, during the code panel hearings for code panel 5 for the 2023 NEC, which is rapidly underway, folks, there was a proposal to basically say that you could do this time of installation for all sizes. And that didn't pass. At least it didn't pass this go around because somebody stated that they don't make continuous white in sizes 4 and larger. And then we know that's not true. And so they said it was a hardship for the people like pool installers, HVAC guys, or other that are actually installing these 4 gauge and larger, that they can't, that it's not readily available for continuous white or gray. That is not true. In fact, we sell white or gray insulation on conductors all the way up to 1,000 kc mil. They're available. It's no hardship. Okay. So anyway, their whole concept was to say that you could do at the time of installation, basically it didn't matter the size. You know, so it wasn't limited to 4 and larger. And we said, you know what? They are readily available in 14, 12, 10, 8, 6. There are. And their argument was, it's not available in white conductors in 6 gauge. Yes, it is. Readily available.
Yeah,
okay?
Home Depot has it. I just seen it today.
Yeah. So, you know.
Just seen it.
Yep. So that didn't pass, obviously. And so, and the benefit, the hardship for them was a lot of these are done, Jay, in 6 gauge. And they're like, oh, crap. I got to use white or gray if I'm using 6 to the hot tub. And my solution to them is jump up to 4, and then you can re-identify it. If it allows you to use 6 and you don't want a white or gray, or you don't carry it on your truck, then even though you're going larger, but you want the ability to keep a standardized size on your truck, then just jump up to 4 and install 4 for it. Just make sure the lugs can handle it and all this kind of stuff as well and everything. But that's your only alternative, because right now your only choice for a 6 and smaller is white or gray or any color other than green with 3 white or gray stripes. That's it. And so they wanted to get that done the same as 200.6B4. They wanted to have that added to 200.6A. So anyway, that didn't pass. So done.
Yeah, it's kind of I agree with it not passing. I mean,
they're available.
You know, even if you're an HVAC guy, I get it. I get HVAC guys run wires. I get pool guys run wires, but also you need to follow what the NEC says. You know, when you step into that field that you're playing electrician at that time, you need to make sure you're playing up to par. You know, and I had not to get off topic, but I had a with a GC with a GC today.
Pull out the black wire. Somebody wrap tape around it.
And we had a big argument today about how every time this GC's on site, they want to pick our brain about code. And they're not really a GC. It's more of an architect, designer who comes on site, and she tries to pick our brain about code. And so I had to tell her in an email today that, hey, listen, I'm not going to consult you.
Know your role?
No, that's right. Slow down. Slow down. Listen, go.
Excuse me though. That's not a woman thing. I would tell any inspector like that or any contractor that's not an electrical professional, and they start imposing stuff on you. I'd be like, slow your roll.
Whoa. Slow down.
Stop. All right. Sorry, I'm loud tonight, Jay. All right.
Hey.
All right. Anyway, so there you go. So let's go on and jump to 200.6D before we get into the other stuff that we're talking about. Again, the topic of the show was when we use the white or gray as an ungrounded conductor. Right now, I'm just laying the foundation. All right. So 200.6D. The reason I'm going to talk about this one is only because this is where people get confused when it comes to having different systems in a building. So this is the rule that says if I have a 12208 or a 12240 and I have a 277-480 in, this allows one of them to be white and one of them has to be gray. They have to be distinctively different. Okay? So what it says in 206D, it says where grounded conductors of different systems are installed in the same raceway, cable, box, auxiliary gutter, or other type of enclosure. Okay, so they could come in contact or they could be in the same location where an electrician could get confused which grounded conductor goes with which system. If that's the case, identification that distinguishes each system's grounded conductor shall be permitted by one of the following means. So you have 1, 2, 3. Number one system grounded conductor shall have an outer covering conforming to 200.6A or B. That's basically saying, look, it's got to be white or gray or one of the methods here for one system.
Yep.
And then the other system is identified something else. Pretty simple. And that's what we do right now, right? When we do, let's think of a transformer where we come into it, you have a primary side, which typically is not going to have a neutral anyway. But we have other systems in the building that might be coming from the source that is supplying the transformer. And then you're taking a transformer that might be generating another voltage system in the building. So now when you leave that transformer, you could have at some point these things commingle in some box. People think you can't bring the voltages in the same, but you can. Okay? Yeah. Feeders and branch circuits, not a problem as long as the insulation rating is equivalent or equal to the highest rating. They can be in the same box. They can be in the same raceway. But in this case, we have to differentiate which system that this grounded conductor goes to and which system this grounded conductor goes to. So we have options, right?
You do.
And it says also, number 2 says the grounded conductor of other systems. Okay, so we have number 1, which identifies the one system, and then you have the other system, which is going to be different. Then it says the grounded conductors of other systems shall have a different covering conforming with 200.6A or 200.6B. So one might be white and the other one's going to be gray. It says, or by an outer covering of white or gray with a readily distinguished colored stripe other than green running along the insulation. So we have options for identification. And then the third one says, other and different means of identification allowed in 200.6A or B shall distinguish each system's grounded conductor. So again, that's kind of number 3 is the catch-all saying, look, this system use white, this system use gray. Anytime they come together at any given location, you need to make sure this is distinctively different so I don't get these mixed up. Okay? So anyway, that's where if everybody ever asks in a code, where does it tell me that one has to be one and one has to be the other? It's here at 200.6D, trying to keep them different. Now, if they never come in contact with each other, they're never in the same raceway in a cable or box or gutter, then it doesn't really matter, does it? Because there's nothing in there to confuse you. It's when they come together, different systems, that's where the confusion begins. Okay?
And a lot of times our different systems, it was 120, 208, and 277, 480. And a lot of times in the schools or libraries or whatever we were doing on the commercial side of things, is your normal lighting inside the rooms, like maybe your office or maybe it's a workout room or in the kitchen room, and then your general use plugs were the 120-208, and maybe you had some high bays or some other lighting that was 277 in the building, and then also motors, the return units up top, the RTUs, those were always higher voltage, and then the parking lot lights. So you did have, in a lot of commercial applications, you're going to have the 120, 208, 277, 480, and it's good to know why you're running those white conductors with that black, red, blue, and why you're running that gray conductor with that brown, orange, yellow. Well, it's because this code article here in 200.6 tells you have to do that.
Yep.
We always do it, right? We always do it. From the first day we show up to the time that we get, even sometimes our journeymans, we're just doing it because that's the way we were taught. Well, now you can go back and not only do it by the way you were taught, you can explain to those that come behind you or under you that are coming up, not only the way to do it, but where to find it at and how to navigate through that code. You know, I try to tell my guys all the time, I know school can be hard at time. I know it can be frustrating because it's not hands-on. A lot of it's in Zoom meetings, and a lot of our teachers here are electricians out in the field, so we come, you know, sometimes drained, so we're not always at our best. But I tell the guys, just take it section by section. And for my guys in residential, I try to tell them to stick to 210-52. That's a really good section for us to kind of hone in on, and you can relate the work to it. But as far as 200.6, I was going to ask you, and maybe we're getting into this, where are we going next?
Well, I wanted to remind people out there that something you said, because the way you talked about it, that rule of identification is really significant when you have the two different voltage classes that might come into a same box or sharing a raceway or that, because that's where the confusion can happen. That's where the mix-up can happen. The other rules that you have to be aware of in the code is 210.5C, for example, whereas since we had that transform example and we had two different voltages, and again, it follows the same thing in 215 I want to think 15, I'm not sure, I have to look, but it has the same concept rules that since I have two different voltage systems in a building, that I have to identify them at all the panel boards where all of this originates. I have to make sure I let people know, for example, the fact that I have two different voltage classes in a building. So for those that are into that, don't be afraid to go look at 210.5C1. That is where branch circuits applied by more than one nominal voltage system in a premise. So if the premise wiring system is supplied by more than one nominal voltage system, then you're going to have to make it very clear at all splice points, connection points, and termination points, very clear which color sequence goes with the one system with the other. And so I did a podcast, I think it was a couple of days ago, that said explaining the color coding in the NEC. And so for those that are interested in 210.5C or 215 when it comes to different systems in the building, go listen to that podcast, because I go into detail about the systems and the myth that people think that black, red, blue, and brown, orange, yellow are in the code. They are not. The only thing with orange in the code is a high leg, and that is only if you're going to use color to identify the high leg. There is other approved means or equivalent methods to do that. But other than that, go check out that podcast. It's available on the YouTube channel, and it's a podcast, so you can listen in your car while you're driving. That's, chilling. Don't want to watch a video in the car. Do a podcast in the car. Just saying.
That's for the little one in the back.
That's right.
But what you were saying about feeders, it is 215.12.
Okay,
for the feeders as
right.
well. And but you make a good point. Is the safety and the clarity of making sure you're labeling certain circuits. I've actually had it mixed up where we did site lighting, and we had brown, orange, yellow, gray, and then we had our black and white just going out to hit the receptacles out there. Mm-hmm. Well, someone pulled the black and the white, and they actually hooked it up to a brown and a gray, and it whatever you put into that device, it kept tripping. So then we ended up taking out the receptacle and using our voltage tester, and there was 277 going to that receptacle.
Yeah.
Back at the J box, they mixed them.
Yeah.
They crossed the two. Now, if you put 120 on 277, most likely that luminaire or that piece of equipment, it's not going to run. It doesn't have enough juice. You're not going to affect it. But if you put 277 on something that's supposed to be 120, just like that, it will. It could blow up. So be very careful.
That's a whole reason we have these colors. This is why you're right now. The code doesn't care what colors you choose.
Right.
Just be consistent with it, and you have to make people that working on it aware if the premise has multiple voltage class systems in there. Again, so check it out, 215.12, I believe, C, and then 210.5C as well if you want. But go listen to the podcast. It'll be easier to understand. All right, so moving on within this, so now that you have a good understanding, we're going to, as far as dealing with the grounded conductors, 200.6E, which is grounded conductors in multi-conductor cables. This one is unique. We want to look at it just for a second. So we're talking multi-conductor cables, Jay. We're talking MC cables, tray cables, all of the cable classes, okay? AC cable, whatnot. It says, the insulated grounded conductors in a multi-conductor cable shall be identified by a continuous white or gray outer finish or by 3 continuous white or gray stripes on other than green insulation along its entire length. For conductors that are 4 AWG or larger in cables, identification of the grounded conductor shall be permitted to comply with 200.6B. Okay, so again, 200.6B was the allowance for 4 and larger, re-identify, right?
Yeah. Yep.
Then it goes on to say for multi-conductor cables with conductors that are 4 AWG and larger, an external ridge shall be permitted to identify the grounded conductor. So you do have some of the applications where it would allow you for multi-conductor flat cables to tell by a little ridge on it. Now, here's what's interesting.
Right.
Here's what's interesting. We tell you what, Jay? We tell you that in a multi-conductor cable, it has to be white or gray, continuous, or 3 white or gray stripes on any color other than green insulation, right? Sounds exactly like 200.6A, right?
Sounds exactly
so
like
far. Then it tells you that in 4 AWG and larger, you can re-identify it. So that sounds, we're talking multi-conductor cables, so that sounds very much like 200.6B, right?
Yes.
Only to go to exception number 1, which tells you to throw all that crap out the window. Because exception number 1 says, conductors within a multi-conductor cable shall be permitted to be re-identified at their terminations at the time of installation by a distinctive white or gray marking or other equally effective means. Now, I fought for this one, and I couldn't believe it got in because basically it tells you all that stuff it just told you to do, forget about it. It allows you to 14 gauge, 12 gauge, 10 gauge, 8 gauge, 6 gauge, doesn't matter gauge, that I can re-identify it at the time of installation. So you get all these instructions in 200.6E only to get to the exception to say, forget about it. You don't have to worry about it. Just re-identify it at the time of installation. You're good to go.
So
I think it's awesome. I mean, I think that's an example where the exception just says, forget it. And it makes sense, right? Let me tell you why it's okay. And here's what the argument, Jay. Here's why it's okay. The problem with the Raceway doing this type of stuff is because people can pull things in and out and, and stuff like that. It could cause quite a bit of confusion. People pulling, adding, things like that. If you get a multi-conductor cable, it's already pre-made. It's a cable assembly. You buy it that way. It's not going to be pulled out. So it's not going to hurt to re-identify it. It doesn't increase any types of hazard. So if I have a red one, and why this is beneficial is maybe I buy a tray cable, maybe I'm buying an instrumentation tray cable or something with smaller 14s, 12s, or whatnot, and I need that extra, I need another neutral because one of my other ungrounded conductors I need now to get a 120 volt circuit. And you're thinking, God, I don't have a white in there. Well, this would allow me to take a red one, let's say, or a blue one that's just sitting there that's not being used. I can now use that as a grounded conductor. And I can just put a piece of white tape around it and circle it. and I can now use that multi-conductor cable for broader use. So that's the significance of that one.
Gotcha. So you can use it both ways.
Yeah, I can use it. We'll see later. You can use it in a multi-conductor here. We use it in a hot. But in this case, I'm trying to achieve a grounded conductor. I need another neutral or grounded.
Oh, grounded. Sure. I got what you're saying.
Yep. So again, I could have a multi-conductor cable.
Because that one's telling you.
Here's a better example. Here's a better example today. MC cable. If I had a black, red, let's say I have a black, red, blue, and a white.
Yes.
And now I want to use it as two separate circuits.
You're going from a boat.
Yeah.
You're going from the boat, which is the full black, red, blue, sharing that
neutral.
One neutral with a breaker tie, probably a 3-handle breaker tie.
Yep.
To now two separate circuits.
Two separate circuits in there. I can have the black, the black and the white, and the red with the blue, because now I can take the blue and put white tape on it. So now I got two separate circuits in there. Now, before that, manufacturers had to make something called a multi-neutral and a multi-circuit. With this change, it allows more use of a multi-circuit, which might have started out as a multi-wire brand circuit, but then somebody wanted to say, well, I don't want to do a multi-wire brand circuit anymore. I want to have two separate circuits in there. Okay, so I'm going to use the blue for that, okay, or something like that. So it does allow for that application. So that's the benefit of that exception. But basically, the exception just nullifies everything in 200.6e anyway, if you use the exception, right? All right, so let's get to that was 46 minutes of not unrelated topic to when you can use the white as an ungrounded hot conductor. So we're gonna obviously this show is going to go over the time tonight, Jay. And I know you can't wait to get to your little fight that you want to see with what's his name in it? I don't know what his name. Conor McGregor. Conor McGregor's fighting tonight.
Yeah, and if anybody's
sure hope you paid for that. You're not pirating it. Just saying.
Oh, I'm paying for it. So okay. if anybody out there is gonna watch the fight, put in the chat who you think's gonna win, because
Conor McGregor. Conor McGregor's gonna win.
I'm going with
Conor McGregor. All right. Anyway, I don't know. He hadn't fought in a while, has he? All right. So 200.7. So here's the crux of tonight's topic. 200.7, the use of the white or gray or 3 continuous white or gray stripes. What can I use that for? So 200.7a, general. It says the following shall be used only for the grounded circuit conductors unless otherwise permitted in 200.7b or A and C. Okay, so the first one says general, white or gray. Number 1. A conductor with a continuous white or gray covering, that's to be used, okay, as a grounded circuit conductor. Kind of redundant, but there you go. Number 2 says a conductor with 3 continuous white or gray stripes on other than green insulation. A little redundant, but absolutely accurate, can be used as a grounded circuit conductor. Number 3, a marking of white or gray color at the termination. Okay? That's an acceptable practice. Again, we have to be careful because all the other rules in 200.6 still have to apply. But here we're talking about, okay, it's still considered acceptable to mark a marking of white or gray color at the termination. But then we got to meet some other rules. Again, it's just telling you a marking will be acceptable, right? But we have some other stuff we have to look at. So let's look at 200.7b. Circuits of less than 50 volts. I don't deal with that a whole lot because circuits less than 50 volts, I don't worry too awful much about. Again, in the electrical scheme of things, but it's a conductor with a white or gray color insulation or 3 continuous white stripes. Ooh, interesting. Or having a marking of white. Ooh, that's interesting. So circuits that are less than 50 can have a white or gray color insulation or 3 continuous white stripes, but it doesn't say anything about 3 continuous gray stripes, Jay. Okay. Probably should have been picked up by the Coke panel. And maybe we did. I don't know. I'm on that panel. Don't remember. Oops. Okay. Anyway, so then it says, or having a marking of white or gray at the termination for the circuits of less than 50 volts shall be required to be 50 volts shall be required to be grounded only as required by 250.20a, and that talks about what circuits are required to be grounded. Okay, so I can do terminations, and we saw earlier when it says at the termination, but we saw up in 200.7a that it says it could be white or gray at those terminations. So again, you see how it refers back to A, saying, okay, I get you. It can be continuous white or gray, but I'm also can do it at the termination. Okay, fair enough. Now, here's the one that we deal with the most. 200.7c, circuits of 50 volts or more. Here's what the code says. For those that are following along and those over in the podcast, it says the use of insulation that is white or gray or that has 3 continuous white or gray stripes for other than a grounded circuit, grounded conductor for circuits of 50 volts or more shall be permitted only as in 1 and 2. Now, what this means is it specifically said we want to use a conductor that is white or gray or has any color other than green with 3 white or gray stripes on it. We want to use it for other than a grounded conductor, which is kind of the topic of our show, utilizing the white or gray, for example, as a hot ungrounded conductor. Okay, so this is telling you, okay, I'm going to let you do this only under a 1 and 2. That's it. You know, the one that we deal with the most is number 1.
Yeah, 1.
So, what does it say? Number 1.
So,
read it to me.
Yep. Yeah, so number 1, if part of a cable assembly, so a cable assembly now, not just
conductors in a raceway. That's another thing that people don't understand. You can't just take a white inside of a raceway and do this. This only applies to a cable, MC cable, AC cable, tray cable, those type of things. NMB cable.
Use it all the time.
Yeah.
So if it's part of a cable assembly that has the insulation permanently re-identified to indicate its use as an ungrounded conductor by marking tape, painting, or other effective means.
At its termination.
And at each location where the conductor is visible and accessible.
Junction box, luminaire locations, anywhere where it's accessible, those type of things, then you're going to have to identify it. So for your example, NMB, what's the classic example people use? Water heater. You take a water heater, you go to a 30 amp water heater, you're using 10-2, it's a black and a white.
Yeah.
Well, it's 240. So I want to put some black tape, red tape, whatever you want, on the white conductor. And I'm doing it at both ends.
Yes.
And now it's been re-identified permanently. And people say, well, tape's not permanently, Paul. Well, it says here permanently, and then it goes on and gives us an example of marking tape. What are we going to have? The tape removal thief who comes in the middle of the night removing these things? It's not happening.
That's right.
So
I taped it, man.
Huh?
And what? I was just saying that an apprentice. I swear I taped it.
I taped it. It just disappeared. It jumped off of it.
What I think about when I think about this article, I think about the last time I did an AC hookup, and it was an existing AC hookup, and it was on the west side of the house, and we had to move. It was getting moved to the east side of the house, so we were able to take that 10-2 cable and splice it into a J box inside the mechanical room, and then we extended that circuit to the east side of the house where the AC was going. The new AC was going to be put. So
it went one way and then went the other way.
It went the other way.
Voltage
so we had to
baby.
Extend the cable.
Huh?
Well, I guess we had to extend the cable. So we had the branch circuit from the service panel to the J box because we had to pull it back from the old unit, J box it, and then extend it out to the new unit. Well, at that J box, per 200.7 C1, I have to identify that white.
Yes.
Even at that J box.
Absolutely.
If not, someone could easily, especially an untrained eye, go up there and go, oh, I have a black and a white. Now let me go ahead and tap off of this and run a receptacle. Not that that's good practice anyways.
I don't think they'll make it very far, but they would do it if they de-energize it. they would have a problem when they re-energized it for what they were trying to achieve. Yes. Well, hopefully they de-energize it anytime anyway, but you're right. So it is, re-identification is for you and me, the electrician. I don't want the DIYer in there, but it is the identifier. Actually, you're absolutely right. So that would require re-identification at all locations where the conductor is visible and accessible. So as people say, well, in a box, it's not visible. Yes, but it's accessible. Once you access it, it's visible. So you're going to identify it. Absolutely. Keep on going here.
Yeah, so then it says identification shall encircle the insulation and shall be a color other than white, gray, or green. Again, you're taking the white, gray, and you're turning right. So what they're saying is you can use it for its purpose if it is white and gray, or you can re-identify it and use it as a hot conductor, but you cannot use it as a green conductor, as your grounding conductor, which makes sense.
Right. Or the equipment ground. You couldn't use it as equipment ground. But it's basically saying you still can't put white tape on it because you're white. It's no longer a grounded conductor anymore. You're using it as an ungrounded, but why the hell would you put white back on it? This doesn't make sense. Anyway, you're sending a message that it's a neutral again, and nobody would do that anyway. But anyway.
That's right.
There you go.
If used for single pull, three-way, or four-way switch loops, the re-identified conductor with white or gray insulation or three continuous white or gray stripes shall be used only for the supply to the switch, but not as a return conductor from the switch to the outlet.
Yeah, so people ask this all the time, and we got to talking before the show. We said we were going to talk about 404, and I told you it's kind of a different subject. We could go there, but this is what you really were trying to talk about. So if I've got the source, let's say I'm doing a switch leg, and I got the power at the box at the light, okay, at the luminaire, lighting outlet box. No luminaires installed yet. Lighting outlet box. And I'm going to drop down through a switch leg down to the actual switch and just simply dropping down and back up. Okay. Now, not forgetting that there is a rule in 404.2C, I believe, that's going to require a neutral at all switch locations unless you meet some of the allowances. Let's just assume that there's already a box there. There's a neutral there. So we're just going to run a switch leg down, Jay. Let's keep it simple. So I could run a 14-2 down, for example, and I would use the white and re-identify it that's supplying the power down to the switch because I'd have to use the black bringing it back up because this says I have to do it to the supply to the switch, not the return. Okay? So I could use the white to come down and then the black would go back up. Now, just so people want to know, if you did need a neutral there in accordance with 404.2C, then you could run a 14-3 down, bring your neutral down. Then you could come down on a black and a red and do what you have to do anyway, if that's what you had to do. If you have to have a neutral there, it's for a different show. And I think I have a video and a podcast on 404.2 and all those rules available on the YouTube channel. But where else would this be? Let's say, Jay, I'm doing a simple three-way. If I'm a simple three-way, then I can use the white in my travelers from switch to switch. But if it's power coming back from the common terminal, let's say coming back to go up and end up going up to my luminaire, or the return path back once you get to the end of the switches, then I couldn't do that with the white. As it says here, it says used only to supply to the switch, not the return conductor from the switch. Okay? Which ultimately is what's going to end up actually going up to the luminaire anyway. Okay? So I tell you what, Jay, though, as an electrician, you got a lot to think about here. When you think about the 2020 NEC and the changes with the requirement, barring any of the allowances for switches, I guess it is 404.2C, barring any of the allowances, you generally have to have a neutral at all switch locations. So there's some allowances, but you generally have to. So you have to think about your configuration if it's a switch location, whether or not you're going to have a neutral there. Of course, we're talking about re-identifying a neutral to use as a hot conductor. But again, I'm telling you, electricians got to think about it because code is code, and you have to have a neutral unless any of the allowances to not have to have the neutral there in 404.2c are present. Other than that, I need neutrals.
Yeah. I think there's a lot more to the electrician to the electrical install than a lot of us think, and there's a lot of codes that we're following that we don't know why we're following. We're just following because we were taught that way. Mm-hmm. And what happens is sometimes we're taught the wrong way. So for this instance, 200.7C1, I was just in a basement myself this Friday because the guys needed a hand.
Basement king, I would expect as much in the basement.
We were in the basement, man. It was a 1,000 square foot basement. And we have two sets of three-ways, one at the bottom of the stairs. So when the customer comes down their stairs, they hit a switch. It turns on the living room set of lights. They hit another switch. It turns on the stair light or the walkway light to go to the bedroom. Mm-hmm. So you have two three-ways. And on the other end, I have the other two three-ways by the bedroom. Mm-hmm. This box at the bottom of the stairs was so hard to get to as far as getting wires down there that I said, you know what? I'm going to do a Colorado three-way. I'm just going to do it. And the reason why I call it a Colorado three-way is because the guys go, no, that's a California. I said, no. We're going to call it a Colorado three-way because we know the reason why we're doing it. And I'm going to explain it to you guys, okay? We're not just winging it. Sorry
so for getting rid of we're going to stop today. We're going to stop calling it California three-way, which me and you've talked about. I don't even know why I call it that way anyway. But so we're going to call it Colorado three-way now. Explain it to the users or the listeners what you're talking about.
Exactly. So the Colorado three-way, again, I'm meeting both codes in 404 and 200, where 404 talks about having a neutral at each box or one of the box that's on the same level or where you can see it in a nutshell.
Sure.
Right?
That's one of the allowances. That's one of the allowances real quick for everybody. If I have a area where from both switch locations I can see the lighting outlets and I can see the other switch location, then I don't have to have a neutral but in one of the boxes. So that is one of the allowances that might be applicable here. All right, so it could, just in case you thought about it. Okay, go ahead.
And that's what we did. And I said, man, instead of running a 14-3 over to that box at the bottom of the stairs, that's difficult, and then a 14-2 up to the fixture itself for the switch leg, I had power and my switch leg in the box by the bedroom, in this box here. So what I did was I brought power, my home run, to this box. I took a 14-3 over to my box at the bottom of the stairs, and I used the white conductor as my hot.
You sent it over.
So I brought the home run. I sent it over.
That's fine.
I always use it. I know you can use it as just travelers, and some people do, but I always, for myself personally, I always use it as a hot. Because whenever you put your tester on it or you see it, it's re-identified and it's going to have power. You cannot miss that. Whereas in a switch leg, you might it does and doesn't depend on which way the switch's position is. But anyways, so at the bottom of the stairs, I have two switches. Over at the bedroom, I have two switches. I brought my power in here, in my bedroom's my box by the bedroom, and I brought a 14-3 over to my box at the bottom of the stairs. And what that did was that brought power with the white conductor. I phased it, and then the travelers came back, and then I ended up taking the switch leg up to the fixture from this box as well. So,
yeah. So again, many ways to do it, and also in your example, I could have used the a 3-wire, and I could have a black red, black red white in equipment ground. And as long as my white's going from switch to switch, okay, to the switches or from switch to switch, I am okay with using the white. The problem is the return conductor, okay? It not as the return conductors from a switch. And when we say return, on its way back to wherever the original started at. So going out and coming back. So you just make it easy. You're just using the white, taking it all the way to the end, and then you're coming back on your black and your red. Just, done with it.
In some instances, it's easier to do it that way. At that other box, I had a lot more space to work with above. So
we should do a show on 404.2C probably. In order to dig into it, because I am sure there's a lot of people that probably not aware that you're supposed to have a neutral at all switch locations unless you meet any of these caveats. And I imagine there's a lot of inspectors that don't know to check for that type of thing. And this is not a new code. It's changed a little bit in 2020, but it's not new. It's been around for a couple cycles, so it's not altogether new.
I remember I was like a second-year apprentice, and I'm on the job with my buddy Matt, who passed away years and years ago, but he was an apprenticeorus, and a really good one though, very good apprentice.
He was a good apprenticeorus.
He was a good apprenticeorus. He was a good lead, and we're in an office building once again, and I go to this switch and I look at it, and they did not phase the white with a colored tape or paint or whatever. What they did was they just used the white as the hot, and they used the black as the switch light going back up to the fixture. They didn't re-identify it though. And I go, Matt, I said, Matt, what? Why is this white wire connected to the switch? We never do this. He goes, no. This is the part of you expanding your knowledge here. I'm going to show you something. And he said this phrase, down on white, back on black. Meaning, if my power was up at that lighting outlet and my power was holding there and I had to go down to the switch and then back up, I would take a 2-conductor with the ground with the ground and go down to the switch, and I would phase my white, black. Well, you should phase your white, black, and use that as your hot, and then your black going up would be your switch leg. Down on white, back on black. And that's kind of what the code's saying, is that you can't have that white as your return back. So the saying down on white, back on black makes total sense in that instance. And so for you guys out there doing commercial, if you ever go to an office building and you see that, now you know what it is. It's down on white.
We have to be careful though, because if they go into an office building application and it's not a cable scenario, then that doesn't work. Because you can't use the white for that.
Well,
it have to be in a cable.
You can't use it, but you might see it that way.
Because you might run into some it. It'd be a violation.
Exactly. But don't be surprised when you see that white conductor connected to that switch, and you're going, okay, maybe they just forgot to.
They didn't know that it was only applied to cables, and But again, great stuff to be aware of because you don't know what you're going to run into. Somebody might have totally glossed over the fact that was only allowed in cables, and then they were like,
right, that type of thing. Didn't think about that.
So I had some questions that came in.
Okay,
and I'm trying to scroll back and see if we can. And I see everybody, Chris, Bill Cosby.
Chris, what's happening? My buddy Chris, he's over tonight for the fights.
There you go. Nick is in.
Nick, hey, Nick was actually at the Wednesday night exam prep, and I didn't know. I think it's Fortune 2 or something like that his name was. So
was that him?
What's up, Nick? Yeah, I think that was him.
All right, let's see some questions here that they're asking is, let's see. Adam asks, Tim is in here too, Code Strong. Tim's in there, Code Strong. Elwood's in there.
Elwood.
And sorry, I wasn't monitoring the chats tonight, but let's catch up on there. Chris says, "Can I send you my resume?" Okay, never mind, Chris. Bill, thank you. Yeah, what? Okay. Adam says, Tim, you killed my stream there. It says, this is a section, and this is the section Jamaica has having problems with, as it wants to adopt the NEC, but the neutral here is black and blue usually. That's terrible.
Goodness.
Because the original codes were British, based with red and black. Well, that is going to suck. But, you can cut the cord and start doing it a certain way, but then they're going to have a lot of education at them in that area if they were to change over to the NEC, because, again, traditionally forever, white and gray was utilized as our grounded conductors. So again, that would be a tough one. Elwood says, any size limitation of the marking conductors? Elwood, I'm going to assume you mean when it comes to marking them in a cable, there is no size. It doesn't matter what size it is in a cable. It's a good thing. 14, 12, 10, 8, 6, whatever. Now, when it comes to the marking requirements for utilizing a Granite conductor, it has to be white or gray, or any color other than green with 3 white or gray stripes, 6 AWG and smaller. 4 and larger, doesn't matter the color except for green, and it has to be, it can be re-identified in the field, right? So again, at that point, it's anything 4 and larger can be re-identified when you're actually in the field doing the work. Okay, so hopefully it answers that one. Adam asks, again, he says he asked the Jamaica code board about the eye that we mark the ends of the wire size if we adopt NEC, so we can identify the current, black or blue, by using white heat shrink tape or paint. Heat shrink would be fine even in our code for identifiers when you're dealing with 4 or larger. It would be me equivalent, and it would be acceptable to tape or anything like that. It would be okay. Nick says, is there a certain length that is acceptable or just 1 or 2 wraps? No, it's just for identification tape. It's just one time around. You don't have to keep going around. You don't have to cover the whole thing. It just says encircle it. So you encircle it once. At termination, you're done. That's it. A lot of people do cover it all, but don't have to. That's a choice.
Yeah.
Honeydale says, once you drop that 3-wire down to the switch, you just created a new violation. If the box on the ceiling is a fan-rated box, honey, you might check the 2020. Hone. Let me say it better because it sounds so funny if I said honey. Hone. If you look at the National Electrical Code, the change in the 2020, if the fan could be plausible to have a ceiling fan in those applications that can't be reached at a later date, like between floors, then you're going to have to put in a fan-rated box anyway, regardless of running a 3-wire to it. So depending on what code cycle you're in, check that out, because the 2020 code has changed that, and now it doesn't matter whether it's a 3-wire run down to it or not. So you always are going to have to look at your box, and if that box is in a location that is plausible for a ceiling fan, means it's not going to hit the blades and that kind of crap, then it's going to have to be a fan-rated box. So that is a quite significant change for the last 2 cycles. It's not dependent on the conductors. And the reason for that, Jay, was because there's so many fans today that are controlled with Wi-Fi or for remotes. So people are putting them on a 2-wire circuit anyway. And they didn't have the support because people said, oh, I don't have to do nothing because it's only a 14.2 up there. Totally changed now. And
doesn't matter.
Yeah, if it's a second floor and you have an attic above it, you can get to it later, then there's some allowances there to get it in later. But if it's between floors, let's say, in the middle floor, and you have a closed ceiling space, that's different. Then it's going to have to be a fan-rated box, even if it's a 14.2 running there. So,
and even if they're just going to put a surface mount fixture that weighs 5 pounds, 3 pounds, it doesn't matter.
Some LED that weighs 1 pound.
If
it could have a fan put there, plausible, means it's not going to hit the wall. 52-inch fan, let's say.
Yeah.
Going to have to be a fan-rated box. So check that out.
Hansdale, it wasn't the 3-wire down to the switch. I didn't have a violation there because I never said anything about a ceiling fan box. We were talking about travelers and using the white conductor as the hot conductor to where at my one box
you didn't go up to the luminaire. Or you didn't go up there with the 3-wire
the
anyway.
Luminaires are just going to be the little wafers that we use. It had nothing to do with the ceiling fan. So
but again, you probably just still ran a 14.2 or whatnot up to it anyway.
That's all I did.
Anyway, so let's see. Abira says, I love your presentations. Want to join your class. Appreciate it. Again, classes, if you want to attend the Wednesday night class, then you're either going to have to be a fast track student or you subscribe over on our YouTube channel at the Electrician Live Exam Prep level, which is $9.99 a month, and higher. Excellent value. What is that, $119 a year for all of those videos, all that training, all this interaction? It's the best bargain I know going. Prefer you in the fast tracks if you really need to learn the code, but again, you have options. What you mean cables? Cables, MC cables, tray cables, NMB cables, things like that. Those are cables.
Anything that has conductors, and pretty much the conductors are wrapped by either metal or plastic sheathing or non-metallic sheathing. So it's conductors that are wrapped inside of one single cable.
Yeah, it's a cable assembly, pre-plexed, pre-twisted, having some type of sheathing or shielding over them. Yep. That's a cable assembly. Tray cable, MC cable, AC cable, NMB cable. You'll pretty much know in the NEC when you look at the articles for the cable, you'll know because it'll tell you it's a cable, right? And those are what we're talking about. SER cable, SE cable, all those type of things are all cables. Let's see. I think that's answered. Honesdale says, I'm aware of that code, but I was going by your example with feed on ceiling. I don't know. I didn't know we talked about one with the ceiling.
Well, no, what he's talking about was I said the feed coming into the top and down on white, back on black. Again, that's still not a 3-wire, nor did I say a ceiling fan. But Hones, I know you get what we're saying. So
yep, he gets it.
You keep digging in, brother. I appreciate you, man. You're keeping us on our toes. And Nick donated $25. He said, training for some more exciting promo videos for Wired Up.
There you go. Well, again, as always, appreciate the donations. They help us making the videos, and I have a bunch more scheduled down the pike. Trying to find the time to do everything. But we do it. I have a couple that are dropping. I have another 2020 NEC one dropping tomorrow afternoon. For those in the 2020, I think we're in, what are we in? I think it's 225, right?
Yes.
We're doing part 2 tomorrow. All right, so we'll be dropping that when it's done for those that are in the 2020 series. And then, of course, we have Electrical Blunders coming out February. Can't remember the date. February 8th, I think, or February 9th, Electrical Blunders. And I think we've got another, the Electricians Academy kitchen episode coming out very soon, which will be exclusive up there. So for those that are members of the Electrician Live level or higher, there's a ton of videos in there. If you go to the community tab, I've got a whole series on pools and spas. There's a couple of the Electricians Academies in there. Of course, you've got all of the 2020 NECs that you could watch. Tons of stuff in there to catch up. You'll binge watch it. How about that? I just finished binge watching Cobra Kai a couple days ago.
That is awesome. Killer, man. That show is killer.
I love Ralph Macchio.
I love it too. And then you look at it and you go back over and you're like, damn, man, I've already watched all this. You're like, when's the next series coming? And they just released that series not
and so
too
you got to
long
wait
ago.
a year, so it's not coming out until 2022 now. And I'm like, really?
Right. I know. 5 days to watch it and it's done.
It's awesome. I love how
next week.
I love how it's turned. How Johnny's become this decent guy.
Right.
Anyway.
Always with a beer in his hand, too. He must have been an ex-electrician or something with all those beers in his hands. Man, he's always...
What are you trying to say, bro?
Doing something. Hey, I'm just saying, we work hard. We work hard, man. So we like to play hard. Oh. Swag over on electricianpride.com. How you like my hat? Yeah, I love it.
Oh, shout out again to Joseph Bellantoni, our most recent CMECP.
Yeah.
Your welcome package. Package is going out Monday, Joe. So welcome to the family.
And let me tell you guys something a little bit about Joe too. Joe's CMECP. I don't know what other certificates and licenses he has, but he is still joining Wednesday night.
Oh God, yeah, that's right.
Exam. He is. I mean, when I seen him.
He's a CMECP. He's in, I think it's Massachusetts, right? And he still comes to our Wednesday nights. And it's just, that's dedication right there. And that's because he takes his career, his profession so seriously. I mean, look, you're a contractor. I mean, you could have said, I'm done. Stop.
Mm-hmm.
Nobody's making me do anything. Look at Tim. Tim comes to these things, joined us. I mean, again, people that are into this, Nick, everybody that's into this keeps going. And that's an awesome thing. And that's only makes you better. Only makes you better. So,
so if you guys want to come hang out with the CMECP next week, come hang out Wednesday night. Mm-hmm. Well, you'll be with two of them, you and Joe, if Joe shows up.
Yeah.
So Tim says Jay's next. I was going to sign up for the CMECP this year, but I think I'm going to wait till the end of this year, going into next year.
Well, let me tell you why he's waiting.
On my courses.
Let me tell you why he's waiting. So what Jay has done is Jay joined our bundle program.
Yes.
So Jay is on a mission to finish the residential wiring, the commercial wiring, the grounding and bonding, which I actually think he should do next.
I think I'm going.
The grounding and bonding, and he's working through that. In industrial wiring, it's his choice whether or not he feels a need to get into industrial wiring. And then, of course, at the end, he'll kick in his fast tracks, and he'll do that for the 2020. So that's a hefty schedule. So I think it's wise that he wait, because the CMECP program is in addition. It's a totally different course with strict guidelines. Okay, in the CMECP, you've probably heard me say it. If you take a test and you get below 80% after your average of taking it 3 times, you're out of the program. You're gone. You don't get a second chance. That's it. You're gone. And trust me, there's 20 of them you have to take. So, and they're tough. So, again, I encourage CMECPs to go at it straight and really focus, and do not hit that submit button until you have printed out and you really know what you're doing before you submit it. Because, again, you do get 3 shots at it, and I don't help you. We don't help you. We don't give you the answers. Unlike with the fast tracks, we give you answers. When you get above a 60%, we'll give you the answers to help you out to learn. CMECPs get no help at all. You don't get said, they don't tell you what you got right, what you got wrong, whatever. You're just we're looking for that score. That's it. Now, once you get a score above an 80, then we will help you out, because, again, we still want to teach you that type of thing. So, interesting program, and it's the only one I know in the industry that's certification that way. Elwood, the bundle program, now I've been marketing that thing for quite a while. Unfortunately, after January 20th, the price went back up to $8.99, so it was at $750 forever. And I had it on my Facebook page, everywhere. On the main page, it was on there. It's gone now. That we might have another sale come around, but right now it's $8.99. Now it's over $2,400 worth of courses, but it's $8.99 now. So it's no longer the $750. Okay, people had their chance. A lot of people took advantage of it. But anyway, all right. And the CMECP is a totally different thing. That's over on mycmecp.com. That's mycmecp.com. And again, the rules and everything you have to follow over there. It only open to people that are master electricians or electrical contractors in a state where there is no master license. Okay, totally different thing. Tough program. But you can do it. If you do, you get one of these. Okay, that's what you got to earn, Jay. Got to earn one of those. All right.
No, I'm getting.
All right. Anything else we want to go tonight, Jay, on the topic? I know we went a lot over, 30 minutes over, almost.
Nope. No, I think we're good to go.
What's next week?
Next week, I was going to say next week on the 6th, we're looking at AC nameplates and conductor and overcurrent protection device sizing. So I think you and I kind of talked about how people
systems.
Read ACs, how they read the nameplate, the minimum, the maximum, how we can use it. This is a install that I see a lot on home inspection corrections when they actually do meet per code. It's just the home inspector may not have known that code at that time or at that day, or may not have put 2 to 2 together. So it'll be fun. I'd love to hear what your input is on it. And
I'll also explain how they come up with the nameplate values. And we'll also talk about what you do if you ever encounter one that does not have a nameplate that is very easily read, but you can get some of the information off of it. Then we will show you which code sections are utilized by the manufacturers in order to create the nameplate and that type of thing. So it ought to be an interesting show. And then we'll do, obviously, our weekly wrap-up on what went on in the week for us and maybe something in the industry. Did you notice the last couple of days, Jay, that the Keystone Pipeline has been terminated? So it's about, what is that, 3,000 jobs? There now people are jobless, unemployed. I will leave that there. Again, I thought we were going positive. We want to get people back to work. I just hope that electricians aren't next. You know what I'm saying? We all got to eat. So what do you think? That's it, Jay. Everybody out there, we appreciate every one of you for joining us. As always, again, Jay, and he said it before, send us your topics. Email us. Let us know. Okay? You can send it, send them to Jay. Jay, what's your email address they could reach you at if they wanted to send you
something? It is wireduped@gmail.com. I will put it in here. This is a joint account. This is a business account. So, again, at gmail.com. If you do send me stuff, make sure it's electrical related. Anything that's not electrical related, I will trash it. So,
what would they send you? What are they going to send you? Porn?
I don't know. No, maybe like a picture of Elmo or something. I don't know. Don't send me that stuff.
All right, so for me, y'all all know it's info@masterthenec.com. And at some point, we might even have one that says j@masterthenec. We're getting there.
Nick says like best. He's going to respond. I'll respond, Nick. I haven't even called you. I have to call you again.
That's what you get when you send an email to Jay.
That's right.
You get all this crickets. All right, well, folks, we appreciate all of you. Hopefully, you got something out of tonight's episode. It's pretty detailed about grounded conductors and when you can re-identify. And like you said earlier on, I think the biggest one you'll ever run into is when we re-identify the white conductor in an NMB as an ungrounded hot conductor. So that's probably the number one thing that people do. Okay. Link to the CMECP. I don't have any ability to do links. It's just www.mycmecp.com. And that'll get you there. Read it up. Make sure you qualify. Don't send anything in if you ain't qualified. Because, again, we vet it out. So nobody will make it through unless they actually are qualified. And don't ask what the qualifications are here. Go read the website. Till next time, folks, stay safe. God bless. That wasn't even funny, Jay. That wasn't even funny.
You're listening to Electrician Live with your host, Paul Abernathy and Jay Grunberg.